bad.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Varandas, also known as Ricky Varandas. And welcome to 2026. This show was actually recorded late 2025, and I feel like shit during this episode and was out of commission for a couple days after this conversation. I think all the running around, coaching sports, being around sick people and sick kids, going to bed late, waking up early, gym, workouts, basketball, soccer, all that stuff finally caught up to me, and I got that one sickness I get a year where it just kicks my ass. And like most of us, I'm sure, you never really appreciate being healthy until you're stuck in bed. And somebody like me who is always go, being stuck in bed for a day or two, not being able to have the energy to play with your kids or go to the gym or just do all the things you want to do throughout the day is really difficult. But I'm back, I'm feeling better, and this show was a great conversation with my brother from a different mother, the host of the Macroaggressions podcast, one of the founding fathers and co-hosts of the Union of the Unwanted, also a best-selling author, my boy, Charlie Robinson. We always have fun swap casts. This one was really casual. We kind of had no game plan, just talked about the holidays, and then we got into some very personal stories and philosophies and traumas and things that have happened throughout our journey on this planet. So if you want to know what it's like when Ricky and Charlie are chit-chatting when we're not recording, this is what it sounds like. It doesn't sound that much different than when it is recording. But one of the reasons why I love casual conversations is you never know where the conversation will eventually take you. This conversation is no different. We went down some really interesting paths and shared some interesting stories. But before we get into that, let me remind you, this is a value for value show. Please, if you can, if you're in a good financial situation, please consider supporting the show. There's tons of ways of doing it. It doesn't have to be financial. You can share, review, write comments. That all helps with the algorithms. So those are ways you can support the show. And the only thing it costs is a little bit of your time. But if you are in a good financial situation and you can support the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Consider sending a one-time donation via Venmo or PayPal. Consider checking out our sponsors, and you'll find links to our sponsors in the show description or on my website. You'll find links to Richard Groves, the University of Reason, regular guests on the show, geopolitical black belt, Scott Horton's new project called the Scott Horton Academy. Those links will also be in the show description. And then Opus Clips, which is a powerful AI clip creator for any type of videos or podcasts. So please check out those sponsors. Also check out our merch store. We have amazing merch store. If you want to get some Theory 6 music merch, if you want to get some Ripple Effect podcast merch, if you want to get some stickers, hats, hoodies, t-shirts, tank tops, whatever you're looking for, check out the Ripple Effect podcast merch.com or find the links in the show description wherever you're watching or listening. And I think that's just about it on the updates. I guess the only other updates is make sure to also subscribe to the Union of the Unwanted, which you can find on YouTube, Rumble, and then you can find the audio anywhere you can get audio podcasts. Also check out the new Theory 6 song, Digital Disease. You can get it anywhere you stream music. And then, of course, if you like the theme song or any music you hear on the Ripple Effect podcast, it's Theory 6 music. Go check it out. And that's finally it, I think. I am very excited about 2026. I have tons of guests that I am reaching out to and conversations with, and ones already booked that I'm very excited about. So please subscribe to the Ripple Effect podcast on all the audio podcast platforms, also on many, if not just about all the major video platforms, Rumble, BitChute, Band.video. I'm still on YouTube, But make sure to subscribe to the show on multiple platforms, because I know many of these platforms have suppressed the Ripple Effect podcast in the past, not just video platforms, but also audio platforms. So make sure you have multiple places you can keep up with the show. Also, following me on social media helps, because I'm constantly posting the new content. And now, time to enjoy some new content. Here's my conversation with Charlie Robinson, host of Macroaggressions and the Union of the Unwanted. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.
I had to hit record because otherwise you and I will get to bullshit and then we'll leave all the good stuff on the cutting room floor. So, how was your holiday?
Good.
Bad,
I mean, we spent
crazy
time. Yeah, no, it was good. We have a tradition. We just go over to my cousin's house, and my parents, like some uncles, aunts, cousins all get together. We eat and drink and do the typical Portuguese thing, just drink a little too much, eat a little too much. We eat octopus on Christmas, which is it's a weird tradition. I don't know where it comes from, but since I was a kid, we've always eaten octopus on Christmas Eve. And, so that's kind of I look forward to it because I like octopus, maybe because I did grow up eating it. And I don't really eat seafood that much because nobody at my house eats seafood. My wife doesn't eat seafood. So, it's something to look forward to. And then we did the whole, espressos and desserts and CRF, which is a popular Portuguese brandy, and then started experimenting with different brandies and different moonshines and whatnot, and drank all night. So it was fun. And then, my kids are little, so we get to do the whole, which sucks because after a night of eating and drinking and being kind of worn down, because I played basketball that morning too. A buddy of mine put together Christmas Eve basketball, so we played that morning, and then we get home late. It's like 11 o'clock. The kids are keeping track of where Santa is, and they're like, Santa's near Massachusetts. You can like Google where Santa is throughout the night, and so we have to wait till they fall asleep. And then it's hard for us not to fall asleep while waiting for them to pass out. Then they, we end up getting up and putting all the presents that are from Santa, in quotes, from Santa under the tree, because my wife wants to keep holding on to this. I'm like, dude, our kids have social media, or at least they go on YouTube, they go on, the internet. Like, they hear other YouTubers and TikTokers talking about, Santa not being real, and they question it all the time. I'm like, this might be the last year we can keep this lie going, because I'm like, I don't want them to be the kid who is in school still arguing with their friends, like, dude, absolutely Santa's real. What are you talking like a, like, just being the one who kind of is the last to
trust the plan. Come on, Santa's real.
Yeah, QAnon told me that Santa's real. What are you talking about? So there's always a concern that, our kids are going to be the QAnon, trust the plan Santa believers. So I told my wife, like, she loves Christmas. Like, that's her holiday. She decorates. We have to get a real tree. It's like every year. We had a beautiful fake tree, but it wasn't good enough. We needed to have a lot of cleanup after Christmas. So it's like we got this, every year we get a real tree, and then, by the time Christmas is over, like, the tree's dying, it's made a mess in the house, and I have to get it out of the house, find somewhere to put it. It's like, oh my God. I'm like, can we just get a fake tree that we can just hit a button or something and it unfolds, or, and those exist. There's no reason not to have one. So yeah, that's that. Oh, you do?
Well, the reason why I have one is because we had an artificial tree for many years. And then last year we were like, this artificial tree kind of sucks. I mean, it's sort of like, it's a mess. And it was kind of at the end of its life. Probably could have kept it going, but so we said, let's get a real tree. Not this year, but last year, let's get a real tree. We're like, all right, we'll go out there and we'll buy a tree, and, I don't need to have to get the biggest one or whatever. And I'm Clark W. Griswolding it out there at the tree store. And I was like, how much is this tree? I'm sorry, is that pesos or dollars? They're like, no, it's like $300. I'm like, it's a fucking tree. It's a Christmas tree. I have to pay this much for a tree. I was blown away with how expensive Christmas trees were. I was like, this isn't like a magic tree you're trying to sell me, right? This did no beanstalks or anything like that. This is just a regular old Christmas tree. And they're like, yeah, they're expensive now. I was like, God damn. Well, so this year we went back to the old. We bought a new artificial tree, and we're like, frankly, we were disappointed. It wasn't even necessarily the price of the real one, but I was like, yeah, it's going to smell good, and it's going to be this, and I don't remember it smelling good. I remember it being a mess. All the needles fell off almost immediately. I was like, it's going to be like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree by the time we get to actual Christmas here. This is disappointing. So I feel your pain. Like we went to the real tree, and then we made a family decision to go back to the artificial tree this year, and we were happy that we did. And it's it's up and it's pretty and it does its thing and it's not dropping needles. And I've got cats, and I don't want cats sitting there chewing on the trees and everything. And so we just did it the old way. We went back to we did it the new way, I suppose, the fake tree. But it was fine with us.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to probably do the same thing. My wife gave away to her father our old fake tree. Like some years ago, we started doing a real tree, and he like decorated it, and like I don't know, put some like fake snow on it or whatever. And we go to his house so typically Christmas Eve, Portuguese people like celebrate. It's a big day for Portuguese people. So Christmas Eve we're usually with my family, and then Christmas Day we're with her family. And she's like, look how beautiful the tree is. I'm like, yeah, the one that we gave away that like she was mad because some of the lights that came on it were like, dying or whatever. Some of them weren't working. And her dad just like cut them all off and then just put new lights. And then I'm like, we could have done the same thing, but no, you wanted to get a real tree. And I don't know how much we paid this year. It wasn't at $300. It wasn't that much. I mean, for $300, you should get presents with the tree.
It was out of control.
That's a little absurd. Yeah, I think it was like, I mean, probably, I don't know. I think years past has been like 140 or 120 or 160. I don't know. It was less than $200 for the for the tree. So it was somewhere between $100 and $200, I think. But and we get it from the fire department nearby. They always have Christmas trees, so like that's kind of the tradition. And I mean that's kind of what makes holidays fun. I know people are always like, oh, it's like it's a money maker, it's a business. I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, everything in the world is a business, and somebody will always find a way to take a good idea and make it a profitable idea. But it's it is a reason to get together. And the thing is, I think that in many cases, I had a friend of mine that was a Jehovah, and I would always get in this debate with him, right? He's like, because they don't celebrate holidays, and right. He's always like, well, why do you need a holiday to get together with your friends and family? He's like, I do it all the time. Like, I don't need a holiday. And I'm like, yeah, but if we're busy and you have people in your life that are so consumed with their work or their own things that are going on in their own personal lives, sometimes you just need a reason to force them to gather and get together with friends and family. And I'm like, and that's kind of what holidays do. It's like it forces you to pick a day or have a day designated to get together, So in that aspect, I think it's good, because if not, there's a lot. You see it all the time with groups of friends, right? Like if somebody doesn't take the initiative, and a lot of times, like in my group of friends, I'm the one who takes the initiative to like really try to organize a get together. And if somebody doesn't take the initiative, it doesn't happen. It just gets, the can keeps getting kicked down the street and nobody ever gets together. And it's like, damn, I haven't seen my buddies in a long time, or I don't know how he's doing. I haven't hung out with him in forever. It's like all it takes is somebody to like step up and do it. So that's kind of like the way I look at holidays, is that it forces you to have to like pick a day to be and everybody's free because you're not working, or you're not working the next day or whatever, and it designates a day for everybody to get together and just enjoy a little bit of company with family that you either love or maybe don't like that much, but at least it forces you to get together.
Yeah, I have an unusual relationship with holidays. I had when I was 16 on Thanksgiving morning, my dad went out jogging and died of a heart attack. So we had my mom had set up the table with the food, everything there. It's like, when is your dad going to get back from jogging? This is crazy. He's been gone forever, And so in my world, I remember sitting on the kitchen floor after that and just going, fucking Thanksgiving, really? We had to do this on Thanksgiving? And you go out there and the table's just still set. Everything's ice cold, of course. And so I don't want to drag that in to my family, because it's my trip, not theirs. But so Thanksgiving is, to me, is the one that's like the emotional minefield. And I think some people get that way on Christmas because it's like family time and you got everybody here. Or if you don't have a family or nobody's there, then you feel really isolated and super alone. I get that, but during Thanksgiving. So for me, I'm like, football games on Thanksgiving. We got 3 football games on Thanksgiving. Awesome. I can just navigate myself through the day based on let's watch as much football as we can, sit down and eat, and let's power through this and kind of get on with it and get to the day after Thanksgiving. That's always been my feeling. And I never really had like the, oh, I love Christmas, it's so great. But that changed when I had a kid. And so that made Christmas fun for me. It gave me a reason to do it. So I don't get all weepy about the holidays, and I don't get, super like pumped up and turn on Christmas music and all that stuff. That's my wife's stuff. But I do enjoy, as you said, the idea that you've got like a designated day that everybody's going to kind of power down, maybe the day or two before that, and be together and do the things that you should be doing throughout the course of the year, that you get really busy and you don't really do it. And so maybe in our chaotic society, we need to carve out some specific time for that. Because if we don't, you know how it'll be. Like if we, like I work every day. I don't have a day off. I don't like, oh, Saturday, thank God Saturday's here, I won't work. I mean, I'm not working, 12 hours a day every day, but I work every single day. And I could very easily get myself in a situation where I pull my head up and I'm like, oh shit, Christmas and Thanksgiving already happened. I wasn't even aware of it. So if I'm not forced to stop and slow down and like do that stuff, then for me, I'll just kind of breeze past it. So I kind of need the forced brake pumping just to settle me down for a couple days. And I'm always glad that I do it afterwards. I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. I should chill out for a little bit, but it's tough. I feel like I have to schedule my time off these days because I'm just so busy.
Well, busy's good. I mean, but so how old were you when your dad passed away?
I just turned 16.
Wow, dude, that's crazy. That's.
I know. I was supposed to go running with him that morning too. He didn't wake me up, so I was like, in my mind, it's like, well, maybe I could have saved him. I talked to the coroner about. He said, you'd have just been traumatized. He said he was dead before he hit the ground. There was no, because he was jogging through the desert and you could see tracks and you could see. So I mean, I nothing like that to shake you out of your little like perfect world and say, hey man, wake up. Shit happens in life, and like you need to have your eyeballs open, and like if you're not careful, you can wake up one day and like your family can be gone. So like it's a bad lesson for people to learn, but it's bad that you have to learn it. But like at that age, I kind of learned like, you may be thinking that Christmas is on the calendar. You may be thinking, oh, thank God Thanksgiving's here, but life doesn't wait for you, and life doesn't give a shit about the calendar or how old you are or whether you're ready. I remember saying to my mom in the aftermath of that, he can't die. We have bills to pay. I remember really saying that, like almost like in a mocking way to my mom. Like we're laughing, we're sitting there like kind of laughing, like I can't believe this is actually happening. Like, hello, like we have shit to do. Like this doesn't work with our calendar. It's like doesn't matter. So in my world, the holidays are also kind of like an important time to stop and like realize, to like Thanksgiving for me really kind of changed. Like I really do have an appreciation. I really am thankful for what I have. I don't actually view it as like, oh, I'm shaking my fist at the sky for how dare the universe do this to poor old me. There's people with much heavier stories than mine, right? Of course, but it reminded me that like it's temporary. Be grateful for what you've got when you've got it this Thanksgiving, or, because the next one might be different, or the next Christmas might be different. And so, it's a minefield for a lot of people. It's like time when you should be with your family and maybe you're not, and you have to reevaluate that. And there's a lot of depression going on during this time. My roommate, my old roommate when we were in college, killed himself right before Christmas, man. He was feeling all alone. And so, like, I'm hypersensitive to people who are like, struggling during that time. I saw that with a good friend of mine. So it's like, the holidays are such a high and low period for people. You get your family together. It's these amazing memories, and it's great. And when it's good, it's great. And then there's the other side of that, which is like, it's a reminder for some people that are feeling very isolated and alone, and maybe they don't have families, or maybe they're not where they want to be in their life, or they thought they'd be further along and they're not. And it's like a time for reevaluation. And for some people, it's super dangerous time to be isolated. So, the holidays are like very commercialized, and it's in your face, and Christmas movies and all that stuff. And for a lot of people, it's like, thank God we got to Christmas. This is the best time. And yet for other people, they're just white knuckling it, just trying to get through the new year and say, okay, well, we can, thank God I don't have to worry about that stuff. I don't have to think about that stuff anymore. I can think about that, 11 months from now. So.
No, you make a really valid point. I mean, it's not, the holidays are not the same experience for everyone. And I mean, that's why I'm so involved with like sports and just hobbies in general. Like growing up, I found communities in just about everywhere. And even though I grew up in a town where there's a lot of Portuguese people, I was one of the few Portuguese immigrants in my class. Like a lot of the kids I grew up with, their parents came from Portugal, but they were born here, so they're Americanized. And I always felt a bit of like an outsider at first. And, English was my first language. I came here when I was 4. At 4, I wasn't exposed to any English until I came to America. And kids at 4 are already talking, only I was talking the wrong language. I was talking Portuguese. And so it took me a little bit. I always felt like I was playing catch up. I always felt like an outsider. And then I found communities later in life in my hobbies. Like, I started playing music. I had the kids I played music with, the kids I jammed with, the kids I had, were in the bands with me. And then I got into weightlifting. I had the gym rats and the meatheads that I hung out with. And, I got really into that. I got into cars. My brother and I started like a car club during like the Fast and Furious era. And, had like, whatever, was like the biggest car club in our little community. And everybody wanted to be in the car club. So we made all these friends. We'd go cruise together and meet other gearheads. And then I played basketball, so I met those kids, and those were, I'm right outside of Springfield, Massachusetts, so I would go to the cities and go look for places to play. So I made a lot of friends from, inner city kids, and Holyoke and Chicopee, all these bigger cities. And so I had like all these, and, sometimes I look back and I'm like, dude, if I didn't have like, these hobbies, which created these friends, I'm like, I'd probably feel as lonely as I did when I came to America, where I felt like an outsider. And these little communities gave me, friends. You naturally make friends, right? And it's the same thing with my kids. Like I see it now. Like, I got them into soccer. They got their soccer friends. Then they have, I got them into basketball. Now they have the kids who play basketball. They got to know the basketball kids. They got to know, and it's like these little communities in each, each hobby and each thing that they get into, which, only creates, more happiness because you have more friends and less likelihood of being lonely and whatnot. And I think that's what like a lot of parents kind of lack. It's like they don't realize that, like, I know it's a lot of work signing them up for stuff, or maybe like nudging a kid who doesn't want to do something into something, but it's more than just the learning a sport or learning a new thing, even though that is beneficial because, putting yourself in difficult situations is going to be beneficial in the long run. Learning teamwork, learning sacrifice, learning to do something when it's difficult. Like my daughter twisted her ankle earlier in the week playing basketball. And then this past Saturday, I had to coach a game. We have 11 girls on the roster. We had 4 available girls because they were either all sick or out of town. And so my daughter had to play all game on a limped ankle. We had a couple other girls that were a little sick also. And I'm like, listen, you're probably not going to have your best game, but this is going to make you a tougher player later in life. I mean, you're learning to play through injuries, and that's a part of the game. I mean, my son, he's tougher. He's already kind of learned that. My daughter's like, she's not, when she's in pain or whatever, a lot of times she'll kind of, I wouldn't say milk it, but she's less likely to like push through it and have a good game, where he's not like that. He'll die on the court or on the field. I mean, he'll just, he could get smashed, and I would have to like beg him, like literally grab him off the court or off the field. I mean, he has, that's the way I played. So I'm like, I remember when I fractured both my arms playing basketball at the same time. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't keep playing, that I just kept playing. And it wasn't until after the game was over that I'm like, yeah, something's wrong with my arms. And I fractured. And then when the next day, I couldn't get my clothes off that night. The next day I went to the ER. They did x-rays, and I fractured both arms at the exact same time, which was like a freak accident. And
holy moly.
Yeah, but that's, the way but I'm like, everything's like a mental toughness thing. It's like when I had Dr. Sean Baker on my show, to do the carnivore diet podcast, I told myself, I'm like, I haven't really done a strict carnivore diet. I'm going to do it for 3 weeks before he comes on, so I have a firsthand experience of it. And also, it's a little bit of mental toughness exercise. Like, can I do this? I love, I love meat, but like I want to do it strict. So like just sea salt and meat, and like nothing else. Like literally nothing else. No, a little bit of salad. No, Chipotle, Primal Kitchen Chipotle sauce, or steak sauce, where just literally and I'm like, it's going to make me a mentally tougher person if I get through this. And I felt great, actually. It was amazing. But a lot of these things are so beneficial in the long run of you becoming an adult, of talking about your experiences. I'm sure, that's crazy. I mean, to be 16, it's not like you were a kid and you didn't know what happened. Like to be 16 and really, it's almost, I guess that would be a good question for you. Like, do you think it'd be more traumatizing or less traumatizing if you were younger and you had a harder time comprehending it?
It's a really good question. I don't know. Never thought about that. On the one hand, I was very much aware of what was happening, and you kind of need to be if you want to process it and move on and sort of deal with it. You can't be like in denial of it. So I was old enough to know what I was seeing and understand the permanence of it. Had I been younger, it would have been like a memory. It would have been like I wouldn't have remembered any like firsthand experiences, I don't think. And that might have made it seem like it was somebody, like might as well just be somebody in a movie, who I don't really know or remember. I had a very powerful DMT trip at Acapulco a couple years ago. Actually, it was the first time I did DMT. It was with this guy, Johnny Dollar. It was with the shaman in this big ceremony, but I got partnered up with this guy, Johnny Dollar. And the DMT ceremony goes, it's like 40 minutes. Like it's not the 7-minute hit that Rogan talks about. It's the 5-MeO blow, powder kind that they blow up your nose. And it's like you get a much longer trip. You can kind of process things that are happening. And in that trip, I saw really very interesting clips of my life. Almost like movie clips of there's 3 different ones that I saw during that. And I'm familiar with the setting. So one of them was the last night I talked to my dad, was the night before. And I was watching in this DMT trip, I was watching it back, but I had a different perspective on it. I don't mean like mental perspective. It was as if they put a camera in the corner of the room and I was watching it from that vantage point. I wasn't seeing the experience with my own eyes. I was watching it from somebody else's eyes, watching the interaction and the conversation that we had, which was, I need you, you going running tomorrow? Yeah. What time are you going this time? I want to go. Okay. Well, you going to set the alarm or are you going to get up? Just wake me up. I'm not going to set an alarm. Just wake me up before you go because I want to go. Okay. Sure you're going to go? Okay. He didn't wake me up. So I had that, I saw that from a different perspective. And that was really weird. And then I had two other instances during that DMT trip that were also scenes from my life that I was watching back, but they were very positive. It wasn't a negative thing at all. But I saw that from a different perspective. And it was interesting because, if I had been 4 when that happened, I wouldn't remember it. If I'd been, 8, it would have been blurry. But to be 16 and know that you just got back from the mall, seeing the premiere, because the movie came out that night, of Scrooged with Bill Murray. I can't watch that movie because you just got back from the mall after seeing that, and then you go in and your dad's working at the computer and you have a little quick conversation, you go to bed, and that's it. So in that respect, like, you never know what you're going to get with psychedelics, and I certainly wasn't expecting that trip that night, but it was like, hello, you have some stuff you need to deal with. I'm going to show you that last conversation from a different angle, and then you maybe the 50-year-old you will get a little bit more out of it than the 16-year-old you. But you're gonna have to watch it again. So brace yourself. And I was just fucking bawling during this. I had a mask on. When Johnny, like when I lifted it up at the end, he could see, like as I was laying down, there were just tears coming down like through the side of my mask. And it was so real and so unbelievably powerful. It's like watching a movie it's like watching a movie that you're very familiar with that's been edited by somebody else and with a camera that you didn't even know was there. And so you're like, holy shit, I've never seen this perspective of it. You're like, now watch it. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And it was like, whoa, what am I seeing? I'm seeing this like I'm there, like the movie Defending Your Life. If anyone's ever seen the movie Defending Your Life, which is fantastically hilarious with Albert Brooks, he's forced to watch scenes from his life, like sitting in a theater, like watching it on a big screen and debating, like defending it. He's got like a judge, and he's got a prosecutor and a defense attorney, and he's trying to judge his life. It was just like that. The DMT trip was just like that. I was like, oh my God, I'm watching it on a movie screen, but it's in my head, of course. And so, it's that was something I wasn't expecting. And that gave me a perspective on it that, it's like, what would you think if that happened to you when you weren't 16, but you were, I don't know, 36, it'd be a different trip, right? So I got to see something from a different angle, and it was wild, but it's an interesting thought experiment that you bring up, that, the age at which you are when something traumatic happens to you, I think matters, like how you're able to, where you are in your brain development, emotional development, for you to, process it and handle it. Because some people don't do it very well. Some people are in denial and it fucks their entire life up, and they wind up in prison or on drugs or something because they can never like get to the bottom of what this super important thing did to them. And, so for me, I never was fearful of it. It's probably the same part of me that like makes me want to like try psychedelics. It's like, I just want to know how it all works. I want to know what happens when you die. What happens, do you come back? I don't know if we'll ever figure that stuff out, but like maybe because I had that event, it triggered my curiosity to kind of figure out how it all works. And in some respect, changed my entire life. And instead of me wanting to, I don't know, grow up and be a baseball player, instead now I want to write books about how it all works,
Yeah, it's weird. The 2000 or being 16, I almost said 2016. Being 16 it's a weird age because it probably is one of the more difficult times because you're not young enough where it feels like a memory, right, and you're not old enough where you've experienced enough loss where you can cope with it. A little bit better. Because I'm 40. I'm at the point where like I'm going to a lot of funerals and a lot of wakes and a lot of people close to me are passing away, and people, that I grew up with are old and sick and whatnot. So, you're right. I mean, if you're a little bit younger, maybe it would feel a bit less like you're in the present and like you were part of the experience, and maybe more like you were a spectator and it was a bit of a memory. But yeah, I mean, that's why so many things that happen in our childhood like end up molding who we are, what we become. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, sometimes unknowingly, right? Like there's things that happen in later in life, you reflect and you're like, why did that have such a big impact on me? Why did that conversation with that adult? Why did that moment where, that kid who I was playing basketball against talk shit to me, why did that really get to me so much that it bothered me every time I was shooting around and practicing, that, I was thinking of his voice and I wanted to get better just to shut him up? Like, why did he get to me? Like all these little things, and sometimes, I mean, I think sometimes, in regards to like sports, sometimes you do that to kind of just use it as motivation. I always say it's no different than like trying to find the right song to get a better workout. Like you're trying to find the right motivator to get a better practice, right? Or get a better, I don't know, just more energy, more aggression, more willpower to get through and become a better player. And so, yeah, we always try to find those little motivations. The thing about therapy, though, too, is like I've heard the counter argument, and it makes sense to me, because especially from like a writer's perspective, because growing up writing about some of my, my upbringing, and I almost said trauma, but like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard because I know like there's people out there who've had, like yourself, who've had like trauma that I could never relate to, that's beyond anything that I grew up with. But it's, every kid, and what's that saying? Like the worst thing that ever happened to you is the worst thing that ever happened to you, right? So it's like somebody could have, you see a rich kid dealing with like stuff that you're like, why are you like all bent out of shape over that? Well, that may be the worst thing he ever dealt with, which means he's not really conditioned to deal with anything much worse, and but like, yeah, growing up, I remember writing a lot of my lyrics and songs about like, either friendships or heartbreaks or whatever, it was as a kid, that seemed important to you, or maybe, I shouldn't say seemed, maybe was important to me at the time. And I remember like, every time I would write, I would try to tap back into those moments, which naturally would kind of make you relive them, similar to like, hey, if I tell a story to my wife about a tense moment at work where I'm fighting with my parents, or I'm fighting with, a coworker, or I'm fighting with another company or whatever, in the process of me telling the story, I'm going to relive it emotionally. And, you get worked up, right? It's like you're reliving it. And in therapy, I heard this counter argument, just alternate argument with therapy, that like, we almost think we need more therapy than is actually required, in regards to what we might be doing is it becomes counterproductive at one point. Like if you keep talking about it and you keep reliving it, then does it get to a point where all you're doing is reliving something that actually you might be happier just facing it, and then maybe just storing it in your subconscious, and there's no reason for you to have to go unlock that door and relive it over and over again. And with therapy, in some cases, like that could be what you're doing. It almost becomes counterproductive, because what you're doing is you're going back and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it, instead of saying like, hey, this is a moment in my life that I went through, I've faced it, I've come to the realization that it happened, and I'm ready to move on from it. And if I don't think about it or talk about it again, I'm okay with it. It doesn't mean I'm ignoring it. It doesn't mean I'm abandoning it doesn't mean that I'm in denial that it happened, but I'm better off not thinking about it. And when I think about writing music, that was something when I got so busy with podcasting and I stopped writing, I realized a bit of me wasn't reliving old shit all the time, because my theory was always like, for me to get the best music, for me to write the most personal songs and lyrics, I have to tap into like some shit I don't want to tap into. Like I have to, because to me, music was always about emotion, right? It either made you want to dance, it made you angry, made you sad, but you got to feel something. So I have to feel something as a lyricist or a songwriter to guarantee that the listener is going to feel something. So I would relive it over and over again, go back and relive some shit. Or if there's something that happened, recently, that I kind of put in the back of my mind and kind of, wasn't really focused on anymore, I'd go back and refocus on it. And then I'm like, okay, when I'm not writing, I'm like, sometimes I'm a bit happier because I'm not, but and then there is a part of it that's also useful because when you do write, sometimes you do feel like you kind of get it out a little bit too, right? So it is a balancing act. Like you need to get it out, but I don't think for everybody you need to relive it over and over and over again. So it's like get it out and then move on from it, and you might be better off that way. I'm like torn because the writing and music was my therapy. I think going to the gym is therapy. Playing basketball, and like I think that's why I always played the way I played. Like I'll be the kid who will play through. I mean, I've never not played because of injury. I've played with fractured wrists. I've played with just tons of injuries, and it's almost like I'm fighting something or I'm beating something out of me. And I just know I'm a better person when I get this workout in, and I will die on the court. I'll be the kid who will play so hard I'll throw up, and just will not give up, and then I feel better. Once it's all done, I'm like, I feel like I just went to therapy. Like I'm so tired, I cannot be angry or upset or overthink anything because that's what do they say? Depression's pondering on the past, anxiety's pondering on the future. Happiness is being in the present. It's like, okay, I'm too tired to be anywhere but here. And so yeah, I'm kind of torn with therapy and how you handle those traumas in life.
I'll tell you, the best thing that happened to me in the aftermath of my dad's death was that I had the option. I mean, I was not living at home. I was away at boarding school. So I got to go. I got to leave. I was there for a few days, but then I got to go back and get into my routine. And part of my routine was soccer. And we were just in the middle. I was just getting, it's actually my junior year, so I was just getting moved from left wing to center fullback. And it was changing my whole trip, my whole life, my whole soccer life. I was seeing the field from a different perspective. And I had these two great coaches for the next 2 years that like really saw something. They said, you're playing the wrong position. You've been playing the wrong position. You should be, we're going to move you to fullback. This is where you need to be. You have the mentality for it. And I started thinking like, that really helped me to have that team and to change my mentality. I don't know. I went into like a defensive mindset where it was like, do whatever at all costs, make sure nobody overruns the castle. You know what I mean? Do whatever you need to do. And then having these coaches that were there at a time when I didn't have, I didn't have the ability to pick up the phone and call my dad and ask him, for advice. My soccer coaches helped fill in that. And then later in the aftermath of that, I had another coach who was never really my coach, but he was a Major League Baseball manager. He was the coach of many, many players for a long time. A guy named Don Baylor, who was a 1979 American League MVP with the Angels and been a family friend of mine forever. And he, I could talk about things with him in the aftermath of my dad dying. He gave me my first job with the Rockies, and in '93, and so I could get where I was lacking in like my dad not being there. That space got filled by super smart, very knowledgeable, awesome coaches. two soccer coaches, one, a guy named Clay Koyman, who wound up playing on the USA World Cup team in 94. He was Alexi Lalas's backup. He was the guy who moved me to fullback. And he's like, dude, you're a fullback. You have that mentality. And then the other guy was my coach after that, a guy named Nigel, who was the head of admissions for my boarding school. And he was a British guy. And that dude could get in my head. He would just say, let's go for a walk, before the game. Let's go for a walk. And he'd find the guy who was going to be the guy I was guarding. And he'd say, I want you to just watch him warm up. And how disrespectful he's being right now, and how he'd get me so revved up. Like, that guy is being disrespectful of you. The guy took his jersey off and was jogging with his shirt off to warm up. Who does that? An asshole does that, right? The coach saw that, pulled me aside, and said, "That's your guy. I want you to watch him running laps with his shirt off. Just watch that." And I just got infuriated. The idea that this guy would do it. And I just, and he would set me off for that. And I was like, God damn, did I really have that in me to be like that, like totally cool off the field? And of course I wasn't like a dirty player or anything like that, but like to get on there and have the ability to flip that switch was really helpful. And I think that being with a team was the best therapy you could get. And being with coaches who could talk to you, who really cared, and you're a coach, you know this, you know how it is. I mean, you're working with little kids, but as these kids get older, I was never going to be, I played soccer, I went on and played soccer in college, but I was never going to go pro. I mean, it wasn't like he was turning me into the ultimate soccer player. It wasn't even about soccer. It was about getting yourself focused and revved up and just absolutely committed to a task, and then letting the coach just fucking go and just do it the way, use your brain, but do it. I learned so much about life from sports, from playing sports, and with never any intention that I was going to go pro. I wanted to work in pro sports. Ultimately did, but that was I knew early on, I'm not going to be able to, I'm not gifted enough to do this, but I can strategize. I can understand. I could sit and talk to Don Baylor for 3 hours about the ins and outs of base stealing. You know what I mean? And like geek out on that stuff, like with the best of them. But it taught me so much about life and being around teammates and how you have that camaraderie and how you can bust each other's balls. And ultimately this wound up becoming important in my job later when I was doing the media training for pro athletes with my partner, Steve, because I learned from being on a team, being on baseball teams and soccer teams and football teams. And I was on a baseball team with my business partner. We went to high school together. So we knew what it was like to be teammates and everything. And we were working with people who were tennis players and golfers, who are individual sports people, who have only always, just you on the court. It's all up to you. If you fail, it's all your fault. If you win, it's all your fault too. So having that all or nothing thing with the golfers and the tennis players, we're like, these guys are weird. Like these guys, we're used to being like athletes on teams, teammates and all that, busting each other's balls. Then you come to the golfers and the tennis players and you can't bust their balls. They don't know how to deal with that. They haven't had that experience. So we were like, holy shit, you have to talk to them a totally different way. You have to approach it because they've been, since they're 8 years old, with an adult coach on the road in tennis tournaments their entire life. They're not normal. And so again, it's like back to like, what's the best therapy? Being on a team. Now you may get that, and then as you get older, or being in a band, like you're a musician as well. You actually get the benefit of both of these. You get the teammates on the court, and you get the benefit. I am so envious of the people who have musical talent and the ability to just sit around like in a group and just pick up guitars and start jamming and everything. That looks like the coolest shit in the world to me. And I bet you've got your interpersonal relationships of dealing with people in life were shaped from the way you learned how to deal with bandmates and tell them that song sucks. How you have to gently tell a guy that's not the best. And like, we should try it this way. Or have somebody criticize your work. And you go, oh God, hey, I want to fight back, but maybe they're right. And maybe, and how that motivates you to be a better songwriter or a better, free throw shooter or better whatever, because now it's like, shit, it's not just on me. I let these guys down. If I'm not good enough, I'm letting them down. And if I let them down, like, holy shit, that's a whole new level of guilt. It's not just me letting myself down and being like, I'm not good enough. The team is mad at me, or the team feels like I could have done better. Like, so in navigating that sort of atmosphere, you got to get your kids playing sports. You got to get your kids doing stuff like that. It benefits them for the rest of their lives, don't you think?
Without a doubt. And there's studies that show that if you play sports, regardless of what you end up doing later in life, you're more likely to succeed or be successful doing it because of those life lessons. It's funny because I've dibble-dabbled in so many little communities where, like, and every community is different, even in the sports community. Like, I'm on the board of directors for for a local club, the Western Mass Pioneers. I coach town soccer. I coach town basketball. The basketball community, the soccer community is different. The sports community compared to like the artsy music community is much different. Growing up, you realize like all the sensitive vaginas were musicians. It seemed like all the, they're not as tough. Like you get an athlete and there's a bit more toughness to them, right? Like you've been criticized before. You've been, and I always say tough parents make tough kids. I know I've been lucky enough. I am a tough parent. When you do amazing, I'll be your biggest fan. When you don't play up to your standards, I'll be the first one to critique you and make you accountable for it. And, so I give both. And I have a lot of parents that appreciate that, and I have a lot of parents that do the same. And that's why their kids are great players, and why I love coaching them, because you can do those things. And, but in the musical artistic world, you don't get a lot of that. You get a lot of like, hey, I just want my kid to be themselves and whatever, and then I remember growing up with those kids, and some of it's also, I think some of it is kids who don't have community, kids who don't have a way to deal with the trauma like you did, having a soccer team and a community and teammates and a purpose, and you felt important, and playing defense, playing a right back or left back or whatever. Are you left-footed?
No, I'm right-footed, but we played like a 4-4-2, so I was like a center stopper as opposed to a center sweeper. So I was offensive if I needed to be, but really sort of a defensive mindset. But what I realized, I never realized this in the moment of playing sports. I realized it like 25 years later, that all of the positions I played, I was a catcher in baseball, I was a free safety in football, and I was a center fullback in soccer. They all had the same, they were all like the last line of defense. I was like, that's a very weird, if you know anything about football, like if you're playing free safety, like you also have a better view of the field, just like you do as a catcher. I could see everything, and I wanted to be involved in everything, and I didn't want to be standing in right field twirling. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to be where the action was. And I also, you're guarding the play, like you got to make sure that they don't get home, so it's the same sort of mentality. I think that's maybe what I don't know, maybe he saw that and I couldn't see it. But once that, I wasn't an offensive player. I wasn't the best. And when I played baseball, I wasn't the best hitter. I was great defensively. And as a left wing, I was okay, but I wasn't doing anything special. I wasn't particularly talented. I wasn't left-footed. I was misplaced there, but had been there my entire playing career, and so then after that, you're like, oh shit, man, like sometimes you're just the wrong piece in the wrong hole. Maybe in life too. Maybe you've got the wrong job. Like, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm doing this job. This job is way better. It's way more suited for me too. So again, back to like the teams being like a metaphor for life and explaining things to you. It's like sometimes, man, you're playing the wrong position, or maybe you're playing the wrong sport. Maybe you have the wrong, maybe you have the wrong coach. Maybe like you're good, like you just need some coach to say, move to this position, change your mentality. It's not even about your play style's fine, but like, think of things differently. And it's like, oh, it's a change of setting, a change of perspective that sometimes you need. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that if parents, I mean, how's it, you're a coach of multiple sports. How is it dealing with the parents these days? Is that the hardest part of your job? Or, are they reasonable with you? Are the kids still at an age where it's like the goal is to have fun, or are there starting to be parents who are like, I need my kid to be getting more playing time because we're going to go, find another team if not? Like, where are you with all that stuff?
If you're on my team, having fun comes from working your ass off and winning. And I've taught my kids at a young age. I'm like, listen, sports is fun. And what's fun about sports is winning, and losing sucks. And we're going to experience both. Hopefully, and hopefully we're going to experience more winning than losing. And I've always had that mentality that I'm like, no, I'm like, sports, if you want to do something just for fun, go color. I'm like, there's scores, there's rules. I'm like, and that's a part of what makes sports so fun. Like yesterday we hosted a 2-day tournament. It was actually, my idea to kind of throw in a winter tournament. We called it Winter Cup, and I had both my kids. I was helping orchestrate it, but I was also putting teams in there so my kids could play in there. My son ended up losing in PKs. My daughter's team, which I coach both, I ended up winning in PKs. And it was like, and it was funny because once my daughter's team were in the finals, we conceded a goal like real late. And then my wife's like, dude, Ricky's going to have a fucking heart attack. This is his second game today. It doesn't go to PKs. And like, I just love the drama. I love I do. I love the ups and downs, and I live for it, and like parents are always like, dude, I was going to have a heart attack. I'm like, I know. And I love every second of it. I love you don't know what's going to happen. You don't, like my son missed a PK. He was my first PK taker. He's like, he hasn't missed a PK in months. I mean, in tournaments, we were in semifinals in town soccer, smashed the PK. He was in a big tournament. I forget where we were in Eastern Mass. Like he's just the most consistent, ends up missing one, and I'm like, fuck, we're in trouble. He was like, he always the first PK taker. He never messes up, and he just, just messed up. He just didn't. I'm like, listen, even the best free throw shooter is gonna miss a free throw. I'm like, you can't be too hard on yourself or whatever. Like it happens, and when you have a bad game, your teammates have your back. When they have a bad game, you have their backs. There's going to be days where you have a good game, and you're making up for maybe a teammate that's struggling, and vice versa. And that's what happens. My daughter, both my kids had a rough day. My daughter made didn't do the greatest job clearing the ball with like a couple minutes left in the game. We're up by a goal, and then her I'll say it. She knows, we talked about it. Like her crappy clear ends up being, leading to them scoring and tying the game and bringing in the PKs. So she was like crying and ball, and I'm like, hey, the game's not over yet. I'm like, don't worry.
Play.
And then her, and it's like, so it's like, I love all that. And the thing is, luckily, I'll tell you what gives me a little bit of equity is that I take everything I do seriously, and I don't half-ass anything. Like, we lost a basketball game, our first basketball game a week ago. I don't think I slept the next day. Like, I was like thinking I'm like, dude, what do we need to do at practice? I'm like, what was our biggest weaknesses? Like, what percentage of our practice should be dedicated to these things that got exposed in our loss? And I love losing a game from time to time because it kind of helps me as a coach, like, analyze, like, okay, what do we need to work on? Because when you're winning, it's hard to figure out, like, hey, we looked good. I know we look good because we just had a good game. I know we have flaws, but we need a team to kind of expose what our biggest weaknesses are, so then I can start working on those things. And so throughout the years of me coaching, and club soccer is very competitive, and Ludlow's known for their soccer program. I think I've said it before, but like in the state of Massachusetts, a little town called Ludlow has the most state Division I high school championships. Like, most people, unless you listen to my podcast, has never heard of the town called Ludlow, Massachusetts, outside of Springfield. But we have the most Division I high school championships, Division I, and it's because of the culture, right? Like, we have a bunch of immigrants here, Polish, Portuguese, some French, Italians. Like, everybody eats, breathe. All their relatives are like right off the boat, Europeans. So they eat, breathe soccer. It was the only sport that mattered. We had a big Portuguese club in town that created a huge European style soccer field, which is where our youth club and play and practice or whatnot. We concrete walls, and it looks like just something you'd see in Europe at a soccer game. And so that it makes it important. And so the nice thing about soccer, it's like we already have, especially the top tier parents. Like, a lot of times, if you're a top player in Ludlow, you probably, and like I said, tough parents make tough kids. You probably already have tough parents that are okay with a coach being a little, being a bit of a, hey, dude, I'm going to make you accountable. Like, you messed up, I'm going to call you out, and nothing's wrong with it that you messed up. We just got to acknowledge that you messed up, and we need to correct it. And so, and I've done, because of this approach, I've done a lot of winning. My kids. I didn't win a lot growing up. Like, I worked my ass off, but I got into everything late. And I come in from the perspective of I understood, because Springfield there's a lot of good basketball players in Springfield. I don't know if it's because of the Hall of Fame or the birth of basketball. Maybe it's a city thing. I haven't played basketball in many other places like Springfield, local cities around here and in Massachusetts. And then, I've played in Florida. When we go down to Florida, I'll go, I'll do I still do the thing I do when I was a kid. I'll go to a local court, fine run, and go play. And I'm like, dude, our Massachusetts, we'll bust your ass. You come to Massachusetts, these Florida kids cannot hang with the Massachusetts kids. You come to Springfield, you're going to get your ass whooped. Because I'm like, if this is the best around here, and I'm sure there's some good basketball players there, but on average, as much as I played pickup basketball in Florida and in Massachusetts, but we have a lot of talent here. So there's a toughness to it but I got into basketball late because I was always around soccer. So it forced me to be like, I got to work my fucking ass off. And I'm like, to get better. And this OCD of I was tired of getting humiliated. I was tired of sucking. I was tired of some kid who first time guarding me, asking for the ball, saying, I got a mismatch, and I haven't even touched the ball yet. I'm like, how do you know you got a mismatch? I'm like, you're ready to say I suck. Or a kid shorter than me getting the ball and saying mouse in the house, I'm the mouse. I'm like, yo, I'm taller than you. I'm like, and at the time I was in the weightlifting, so I was jacked, and I'm like, they didn't care. I'm like, how much you can bench press has nothing to do with how good you are in a basketball court. And so I have that mentality. So that mentality has come over to my coaching, where I have that we're going to outwork people, And even one thing I love about coaching basketball in town is that basketball never been a sport taken seriously in town. It's always been a hobby for the soccer players. So I recruited my high-level soccer players. I'm like, hey, come play basketball. I'm like, my son's always around it because I'm always playing it, and so he loves it. And I'm like, let's sign up. And I'm like, whatever you guys make, whatever team you make, I'll coach you. I'm like, that's our deal. I'm like, I'll coach you guys because at least you know who the coach is and whatever. And a lot of parents are like, oh, I'm gonna hate basketball, this and that. And I'm like, why'd you convince my kid to sign up? I'm gonna hate basketball. And then they all fell in love with it. They loved the new challenge or whatever. And I always had this mentality. I'm like, I can't teach you guys who only play basketball basically, as a hobby from time to time, to be better than the kid who plays basketball all year the way you play soccer all year. Yeah. But we can be the most disciplined. We can be the most unselfish. We can make the least mistakes, and we can work harder than anybody, and we have a chance to win. And then we've been successful just based on those things. So going back to all these things, I think that I think those life experiences I've had, just like your life experiences, has molded some of the way you approach life and some of your work ethic and some of the, never give up type of mentality. And then also, I think, when I always say, I'm like, when you're winning, parents kind of keep their mouth shut, because it's like, hey, maybe I am tough on your kid, or maybe this, but then I had, and I've had some parents that will get, especially, I think my biggest issue is with, I have a couple of kids that I brought over from my soccer team that are like my starters. They're like the kids, they start every game. They're like a top 3, 4 player on the team. And then they come to my basketball team and they're coming off the bench and they expect their kid to start. I'm like, no, this is a different thing. And I'm like, this is, so I'm like, I know you're used to your kid being the kid, the man. He gets all the playing time, this and that. And then you come on the basketball team and all of a sudden, like, your kid's not, not the man, but I'm like, we have other kids, so if anything, I think they, some parents do appreciate that I don't play favorites. Like, if you're the best player who deserves to play, on my daughter's team, same thing. This girl who I convinced to come play basketball, she never started a game ever on my soccer team. She always came out the bench, and every game she would be like, she's like, Coach, how come I don't get to start this game? I'm like, I almost said her name. I don't want to blow. I don't think anybody in her family's listening, but I'll just leave it out. But I'm like, hey, if you go in there, and I'm like, everybody's going to get an opportunity to play. You decide at what you do with that opportunity. If you're helping the team, I will not take you out. I'm like, as you guys know, I'm like, I want to win. I want the team to win. If you're helping the team win, why would I sub you out? I'm like, help the team win, and I'm like, everybody's gonna get an opportunity. When you get that opportunity, it's up to you to earn that playing time. And I write an email before every season, basketball and soccer, to all the parents, and I tell them the same thing. I'm like, I do not believe in a deserved mentality. I believe in an earned mentality. I'm like, your kid does deserve to get some playing time, but the playing time he gets is earned. How much playing time. And I tell every parent, I'm like, if you have an issue with this, I will be more than happy to put you on a fun, focused team that's more concerned about everybody having equal playing time or whatever. I'm like, now if you want to, because I'm always in the top division, so I'm like, I can't afford to have kids who, like, I have to worry about, I got to keep their parents happy, or I got to keep the, and I tell all the kids, and guess what? I had an issue after our first loss that I had these kids complaining about playing time. And it was a soccer players who are used to being stars that were now struggling because I have taller players and more. I have a couple kids that are focused on basketball that are just better options in tight games. And I'm just like, listen, guys, I'm like, no offense, but I'm like, if you were worried about your playing time, I'm like, we have rec teams and we have CYO teams. I'm like, I'll be more than happy to get you on a team that can, you'll get more playing time. You can really stick out. I'm like, it's up to you guys. I'm like, but if you want to be in a suburban team, I'm like, it's competitive, which means when you're having a great game, I'm going to keep you in. And if you're struggling, the kid who's having a great game, I'm going to keep him in. And I'm like, and never will I, favor a kid who's struggling over a kid who's having a great game. I'm like, if you give me a great performance, I'm like, I'll do that. And then on the games that are a little bit more of a blowout, I'll try to get those the kids who are still learning or weaker kids in to get that experience. And you got to balance it all out. But I'm like, it has to be about winning, and I've had a couple parents that I've buttoned heads with a little bit where they'll, I have to have this conversation with them, which I hate. I hate having the conversation because it's like, listen, like, it's the way I treat everybody. That girl that I was talking about that never started a game for me is my starting center on my basketball team. It's not because I didn't favor her when I coached her in soccer and now I favor her in basketball. It just, she's a much greater basketball player than I thought. And I didn't know she was playing, and she's like, I want to play on your basketball team. I'm like, sign up. Hopefully you make the team. And then she didn't just make the team. She made the team and is a starter. And so it's like, parents see that and hopefully they get it, and it's all, the nice thing about coaching too is that you do a lot of soul searching. It forces you to, like, okay, am I favoring this kid? Am I doing this? What am I doing wrong? Or how do I extract the most out of these kids? How do I get the most out of this kid or that kid? It's a lot of personality management. I think one of the most underrated parts of coaching is being able to communicate. Like, you would make a great coach, I think, just because of your understanding of the game is a part of it, but your you're a people's person. You get along with everybody. You listen. You know how to take the time to like try to understand somebody's wants, needs, desires, likes and dislikes. And I remember Adam Carolla was talking about this, and I forget which podcast. It might have been when he was on the Rogan podcast. He was talking about how when he coached boxing, he wasn't the best boxer. He's like, by far, he wasn't the best boxer at that gym, but he was the best coach, because when he coached, he would really focus on communicating, like, and getting to know these guys and knowing how to explain the concepts. And he's like, his communication skills made him the best coach, where there was like coaches that are way better boxers than him, but struggle to coach. And you see it in pro sports. Like, you know, you follow a lot of pro sports. Like, there's not a whole lot of great players that turn out to be great coaches.
You know, it's interesting. I was trying to get an understanding of why the clubhouse was laid out the way it was. And I was working, it was the first year of the Rockies being a team, 93, spring training in Tucson, at a place called High Corbett Field. And Baylor had brought me there. I was working for him. And I said, I said, who put the players' lockers where they are? And he said, I did. And I said, why? And he says, you have to racially segregate the locker room. I was like, I'm sorry? By the way, for those who don't know, Don Baylor is a large black man, really well respected, kind of like Darth Vader, though. Super duper intimidating, like had the respect of the clubhouse for a variety of reasons. And I was like, I'm sorry. He's like, you got to keep the brothers over there. You got to keep the Dominicans over there, and you got to keep the whites over there. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he said, and then this guy's sitting next to this guy because it's our number one overall pick, who's a pitcher. And I've got him sitting next to this other guy who's a veteran. And what was interesting about I wouldn't know this until like 20 years later, but out of that locker room, out of that clubhouse, I was so fascinated with like the interpersonal dynamics of the locker room setup. And what was interesting was that from that group, I think we had 4 catchers on the roster for spring training, because pitchers and catchers report early, 2 weeks early. And I was there before they were there. And I think all 4 of those catchers went on to become Major League Baseball managers. Eric Wedge, Joe Girardi, fucking hell, I'd have to pull up the roster. There were 4 catchers on there. I think all 4 of them went on to become managers. They would just sit and listen to Baylor talk about stuff, about how he saw things and why. And I would sit there with my mouth shut, just listening, trying to like see how much I could learn from about why you're doing the things you're doing and why you're, you know. So when you're talking about like knowing how to interact with with these players and everything, that's as important of a quality than X's and O's. You know what I mean? Like there's something to be said for losing the locker room. And when somebody loses the locker room, what that means, and like how you don't get that back, and how that takes a while to earn it, and all these like things that you do throughout the course of the season, like really, like when you've got, you know, when the manager has his pitchers back in a post-game press conference, like that can go a long way. Or taking the heat for something that he didn't need to take the heat for, to deflect from something else that's going on. Like that goes a long way. The shit that never gets out into the press, that's happening behind the scenes. Like if you've got a good one there, if you've got a good manager or, you know, head coach, whatever, pick the sport, they keep a lid on some of that stuff and keep the press out. It's where I learned to despise the media, was working in pro sports, because I think they're vile, subhuman filth that take advantage of unsophisticated young athletes and do horrible shit to them like they did with the Duke lacrosse guys. Fucking unforgivable what Rolling Stone did to them. Should have put those writers in prison. So like I have a soft spot in my heart for pro athletes that, you know, say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing in the media, because that's what my company did. That's what we did is we would get them before the media got a hold of them and explain like, hey, listen, you know, this is what you say, this is what you don't say. These guys aren't your friends. And so like, you know, again, like I think it's so funny that I'm doing what I'm doing now. And like my public enemy number one is the mainstream media, because it's like, I've hated them for 25 years.
Yeah, it's even in sports media, it's very similar I mean, it really is similar no matter what type of media you're referring to. It's about clicks, it's about creating drama, it's about, you know, those type of things. I mean, constantly clicking on sports stories that are deceiving based on the headline, right? I mean, they'll say something and you read the story, you're like, this isn't what this story's about, you know? And and the stress of a professional athlete. I mean, these players, and I say kids because they are kids in many cases. People forget that. I think it was Jose Mourinho or whoever it was, a soccer manager, that was talking about how when you watch them on TV, you think, you know, they all look like adults, right? They're big, they're fast, they're strong, they're tough. And then he's like, and then they're in the locker room and they're TikToking and talking about girlfriends, and you realize like these are just kids, man. They're just kids. They're in their early 20s. They're still figuring shit out. They're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna, you know, and yet if you do make a mistake, it's public. You got your friends busting your balls. You got the media busting your balls. You got your, you know, people, you know, talking trash to you. It's a lot of stress, and the stress of being a professional athlete is no joke. It's you know, I feel it even when I'm coaching a big game. Like I have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of like, oh, I hope this goes well. I hope I made the right decision. I hope I started the right guys. I hope we had the right game plan. And I'm like, I couldn't even imagine that when you're on TV and you have the whole world watching in a big game, and it just, you know, but that's also a part of one of the benefits of playing sports is that you also learn how to manage that. You know, like I was saying, my son, he's kind of fearless when it comes down to PKs. It's because he's already been afraid of PKs. I mean, when he was real little, he missed one in a big finals, and he's like, PKs, it's just not my thing. He's like, I just suck at it. I'm like, no, you don't suck at it. We just need to work on it. And then we worked on it, and then he went from being like scared of PKs to being the first one when it's a PK to be like fighting with his teammates. No, I'll take it. You know, he's like, he wants to take it, and you know, so that's also something that came with playing sports at a young age and being put in that you know, sometimes parents are like, oh, you don't want to put pressure on the kids. I'm like, they're learning to deal with the pressure, and the pressure goes away. You can't ignore it because it's just a matter of time before they're adults and they have to deal with it. So you're better off, you know, little by little exposing them to it now. And what isn't really, you know, if we win or lose, it really isn't life or death. You know, but they still have the pressure of the game. They're learning to deal with real life pressure in what isn't a real life, you know, pressure scenario, right? It's not that serious. But then when they do have a real life pressure scenario, they've dealt with it and they know how to deal with that anxiety and stress.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation with my wife about this because our daughter is into equestrian and hunter jumper, you know, all this. You know, all of that where you've got to, you know, follow a particular course and you've got to jump over the barriers and all this stuff. You know, it's a whole thing. And it's super stressful. And she was at a tournament this, you know, earlier in the month, and she got bumped up into a class that was like a class higher than hers that she wasn't expecting to be. And she was going to have to be the first one to do the course. And she was unfamiliar with the course and had almost no time to figure it out. And my wife said, it's really kind of unfair that they did that to her. I said, good. No, I'm glad. I'm glad they did both those things to her, because now in her mental Rolodex, in the future, when somebody bumps her up into a higher court, she's done that, or makes her be the first person, she's done that. She can draw upon those experiences later. Good that she didn't have any time to think about it. Sometimes you don't want a lot of time to think about it. But you've now had those experiences, you've gone through those hurdles, and the next time it happens, you'll be prepared for it. You at least won't have the anxiety of it being your first time. You may still screw up, but you'll at least, you're just building experiences one on top of the other. And so I sometimes think that when they throw you a curveball or you miss a kick or you something like that, it's like, all right, well, remember that feeling, remember how you feel right now. Let's make sure if you don't want to feel that again, we might have to get back in the gym or back on the actual proverbial horse. You may have to just keep working through this until what it's like when you're trying to hit a shot over and over again, and then you finally do. That sense of accomplishment, like that translates into your life. That's the same thing as you emailing a bunch of people. I'd love to have you on my show. I'd love to have you on my show. No response. And then boom, you get the guy who's like, I'd love to come on your show, Ricky. And you go, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right, Wayne? So you find that these lessons that you thought was about basketball, these skills that you learned, when you were a kid that you thought was about skateboarding, like, no, man, it's that you sometimes have to try the jump 100 times until you stick it. Because when you do stick it, that feeling is so great, and that sense of accomplishment carries forward with you into your life, and you go seeking that in some ways for a long, long time. But that, I think, is a positive thing. I was talking to my daughter about being competitive, and my wife says, I don't understand. My wife says, I'm not competitive, but you two are. She says, I don't know what that's like. I said, well, here's the thing that you need to understand. I'm not competitive against the guy who's next to me or the guy who's on the other team. That's not my driving force. I'm competing against me. I'm competing against how I was last week or how I was last year or what I think I can be in the future. But the competition is not it. So I said that you have to understand when the two of us are being competitive, this isn't a negative thing. This isn't a bad thing. It's not, I have to win at your, and you need to lose. Some people are bad about it. Some people take it to like a really sick place, and you can do that. But that's never been how I view it. I'm just trying to make sure I'm better than I was before. Not necessarily, unless you get on the wrong side of me, then I might want to fucking dominate you. But that's rare. That's only like if it's like, if someone tries to make it like, oh, okay, you want to go? Then let's go. Like I'm down for that too. But normally it's just, when I go to the gym, what am I doing? Am I training for a bodybuilding competition or something? No, I'm just going to the gym because I've always gone. Because that's what I do. That's my outlet. That's my therapy. That's my stress reliever. I feel healthy because I feel healthy. Maybe I'm going to, carry that forward with, you know what I mean? So like, I think that people that get involved in group sports, I think it's tremendously beneficial for their kids. For them, for the rest of their lives. It's not just limited to being on the field. And I think that's why so many people in the business world come out of the sports world as well. Like there's a mentality, there's a mindset that translates very well. It might not translate very well to being like a research biologist, I don't know, but it translates usually pretty well in the sales world. You find a lot of people in the sales world or in the real estate world that come out of sports, because if you're already kind of working on a eat what you kill mentality in terms of like the way you train or the way you live your life, then you're not going to have a problem going into 100% commission sales. You're sort of already geared for that. If it's a matter of outworking the other people in your office, holy shit, you're like, I'm a grinder. I'll get in there and destroy those people. Like, let me in. I'll take 100% commission if there's uncapped upside. Yeah, but those are the people that are like typically athletes, I think, not bookworms.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And, those are things you learn. I mean, I think being in a band and playing sports, one thing I learned was being okay with being criticized, which also probably prepared me for podcasting and comments, and
for reading the comments. Listen to these two assholes.
Yeah, I'm super honest. So there's nothing a commenter could say that I haven't already thought myself. It's like,
I guarantee you.
Talk too much.
I'm harder on. You want to criticize me in the comments? I'm harder on myself than you guys would be. I've called myself every name in the book. Believe me, don't worry. You haven't said anything to me I haven't said to myself. I get it.
Yeah. And musicians aren't quite like that, because a lot of times you have a songwriter and it's all about oh, he's writing the song, so there's not a whole lot of critique coming from the other people. I saw when growing up playing music, I would do the lyric writing, and a lot of times I would write the song on my guitar, because I would sing and play guitar for the band, and I'd come with a idea, and it would always be like, okay, they would shoot it down, right? Like, oh, no, we don't like that, or we do like that, or maybe two band members like it, but then one doesn't. So then there's should we do this, or should we change that? So I was always the one kind of being critiqued, So and then when anybody else in the band had an idea and you critiqued them, they weren't used to it, so then they would take it personal. Like, why are you? What's wrong with my idea? It's like, no, it's not about your idea. It just does it fit the song? And then when I got into playing sports, it was the same thing. I remember just even my kids, when they would come to, my son, because my daughter was real small, but my son was real small before he got so busy with his sports, life. He would come to my games, and, I'd play in local city leagues and whatnot. And he'd be like, Dad, you played well. I'm like, nah, I didn't, man. I'm like, I made a mistake there. I missed that pass. I should have made that shot. I was wide open, this and that. And he kind of learned how honest and hard I was on myself, And like you said, it wasn't about beating the other team. It was about me trying to give the most I could give. And anytime I felt like I came up short, I was honest about it. And I wasn't honest about it because I just wanted to cry and be sad or what. I was honest about it because it let me know that I need to work on some stuff. And it was motivation to do better, and that was always the way I looked at everything. My wife's always like, you're so disciplined with your diet. I don't know how you do it. She's, but then she also tells me that sometimes I'm too hard on myself when I cheat. I'm like, no, it's okay for me to be hard on myself when I have a reward day or a cheat day, because me being hard on myself is why the next day it's unacceptable for me to continue that cheating, and I had to get back on track. And, so it's all those, like you said, everything's internal. It's all these little, things in your head, and you learning these little life lessons that stay with you. I had a player that I coach give me a gift on Christmas, and it's my favorite quote, and that I'm sure she heard me say multiple times. A good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. And I say that all the time. I always have these little quotes I say and whatnot. And I never take for granted that I can be a part of some kid's life lesson, right? And help them learn something in this journey of playing sports. And I was like that. I learned a lot from the ups and downs, the sucking at stuff and having to really work. I mean, podcasting was the same thing. I'm sure you dealt with it. This a little bit of I don't know if I'm good at this. I don't know if anybody's going to listen, but I'm going to work hard at it, And the thing about hard work and luck, it cross paths at some point. But if you don't work hard, it's never going to have the opportunity to cross paths with some luck, right? And I've gotten some great guests on the show, and people sometimes be like, "How'd you get?" I'm like, it's a lot of emails, a lot of especially when I first started, it's hundreds of emails, hundreds of being an investigative journalist and trying to find some contact info for people, and then getting zero response. And it was a long journey from 2013 to now, where I'm getting emails and I'm turning people down, and I'm getting free books in the mail for, guests that want to come on or whatever. Like, it was, it was a long journey. And then sometimes I still deal with, like, hey, for some reason, I just can't get that person on. Either they're not interested, or they're, or whatever it is. And it kind of reminds me of, like, hey, I haven't gotten to a point where, like, everybody says yes, and that's okay too. It kind of humbles you and keeps you in place. And so all these things are life journeys, and you can either look at, like, all the bumps as, like, woe is me, or you can look at it as, like, hey, I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to use it as a life lesson. I'm going to be bigger and stronger and better because of it. And that's, and it's my other favorite quote: if you change the way you look at things, what you look at changes, right? It's all, everything's perspective. Everything is the way you look at it. And I look at things that go wrong sometimes as a challenge, right? And then, or I can look at it as a defeat and be like, this sucks, I just give up, right? Or I look at it as, like, no, this sucks, but I'm going to find a way. I'm going to at least do my best to find a way to get through this, and we're going to figure it out. And, I think having that mentality is why a Cristiano Ronaldo or a Tom Brady or a Michael Jordan or Kobe at the end of the game isn't looking at, like, oh shit, coach is drawing up a play for me, I'm gonna fucking blow this. Instead, they're like, coach better be drawing up a play for me because I'm gonna win this. And same situation, just different mentality.
Yeah. I have you ever gone through, like, a major injury?
Yeah, well, I dislocated my shoulder. The only things that have kept me out, like, the only times that I've been, like, literally forced to have to not play was I dislocated the shoulder twice, and then when I fractured both arms. And even then, I was still going to the gym. I would just do lower body and core or whatever. But it was the only time I was, like, forced where I couldn't play sports, and it drove me fucking crazy. It drove me. I'm like, I have to do something. I couldn't even imagine ACL or MCL, where it's like you got no choice but be off your feet for, like, a year.
I tore my ankle my freshman year at USC, and I missed 2 years. I didn't play until my junior and senior year. From that injury, and that was a huge, like, psychological gauntlet you have to run, where you can't work out. And I got misdiagnosed, and I should have had surgery, and I didn't, and it fucked me up. That's why it fucked me up for 2 years, and it's a whole thing. And, like, that, working yourself through an injury is, you have to go through all that. I watched my roommate tear his ACL and have to go through an ACL reconstructive surgery and rehab of that, and watching him on the machine that sort of straightens your leg, and him going, and they're like, oh, fucking hell. I'm like, man, the career of a pro athlete is so short, and it is so stressful to be in that world, because the majority of the people are, like, barely hanging in there, just barely making it, and that, or they just came up, like, from the minor leagues or something. In the case of baseball, where they were making jack shit, now they're finally starting to make some money, and they don't want to lose it, and so there's a lot of anxiety surrounding that, and, like, so it's not, like, the most healthy environment, because it's obviously super competitive, but, like, there's a lot of money involved, and there's a million guys trying to take your job, and you're trying to work with them and be cool with them because you're on the same team with them, but there's other aspects of it that factor into the reality of how you guys interact with each other. And one of the guys I meant to mention, I said, was one of the catchers, was a guy named Brad Osmus as well, was in that locker room. Dudes went on to Ricky, you would have loved to come to the place where I worked. Back in 2003, I opened a division of our company at the IMG Academies in Bradenton, Florida. Are you familiar with that place? Have you heard of IMG Academies?
I've heard of IMG. Why is that? I mean, do they do other things also?
IMG was a company that was started by Mark McCormick, and they were talent managers. They just did that, and they have they over the years it's been acquired as IMG William Morris. So the talent agency side of it, and there's sports agencies that have all now turned into CAA, but at the time it was IMG baseball, IMG hockey, IMG football, and they bought the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy and turned it into IMG Academy. So now there's a full facility there. There's a boarding school there. And my company we were the communications component of that. We were a separate company working there, but my partner ran that still runs that, for 20 plus years. I'm not involved in it, but it's like the sports fantasy camp heaven. Like the facility is unreal. I remember walking through one day in 2003. I was walking past the president's office, and he yelled at me. He goes, "Hey, come in here!" And I stuck my head in. He goes, "Have you been over to the basketball courts today?" And I was like, "No, you should." Why? He said, "You should go over there. We have $200 million of basketball players over there right now." And I was like, "Okay." So I went over, and it was like basically almost the entire starting lineup of the Detroit Pistons and a bunch of other dudes, just like a hodgepodge, like all playing pickup basketball in gym with nobody there except me sitting there just like, nice lunch break. I'll just watch these guys play the shittiest basketball I've ever seen them play. It was like awful. Nobody's hitting anything. So, but you would have loved it, Ricky. It's like a sports camp. Actually, people can go there and like play it, like who are into tennis or golf, and like go for corporate events and like stay at the condos and then get trained all day long by like world-class professional golfer instructors or tennis coaches and things like that. But like every single big-time tennis player in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s came out of that place. Like every one of them. And when I was there, they were there. I was watching Sharapova. I was there when Serena was there. I was there when Michelle Wie was there. Like crazy shit, man. Like a real interesting place to watch, to see sports from a weird perspective.
Well, the cool thing about that, first of all, it's shitty. Well, when they play pickup basketball, you know how they are. Everybody's just playing for themselves. Everybody's being a little selfish. There's no team playing. But that was, that was a good Detroit team. That was the last really good Detroit
Chauncey
team.
Billups was there. Stanley Roberts was there. A bunch of dudes were rehabbing there.
That team had Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun
Rip Hamilton
Prince,
was there.
Ben Wallace, who got in a big fight with Ron Artest. Rashid was there, I think, at the time already, right?
He was on the team, but he wasn't at the IMG when I was there. I didn't see him there. But we know, affectionately known as Bird Crap, Rasheed Wallace. You remember that when he'd play road games because he had that white spot on the back of his head. Yeah, his head shape, but it was just that one, like his black afro had like one little white spot, so everyone in the stands would yell "Bird Crap" at him. Best taunting nickname ever.
Yeah, I was a big Rashid. Well, he always had some of the records for the most technical fouls. And he's been pretty honest also about the refereeing and some of the nonsense that happens. He
wasn't wrong. He wasn't always wrong. He was a guy you could set him off real easily. Like they could easily get him in foul trouble or technical trouble. But I've seen him doing interviews recently. He's like, remember when I was talking about that motherfucker on the dude? And all this, it's like, now look at it. And it's like, well, you might have had a point, Sheed. You might have had a point. But you also had a reputation.
No, he was right.
So,
yeah, he did. And the thing is, refs are human, and they also have personal, issues with certain players, which is going to affect their decision making. It was like that Tim Duncan was it finals or Western Conference Finals game where they put the ref that didn't get along with him on the game, and everybody kind of knew, like, why would you do that? That's like, that's going to cause some issues and could potentially, have a effect on the outcome of the game. And it did. Like, he got a technical when he was on the bench and got kicked out of the game. And everybody's like, dude, like, he shouldn't have been reffing a Tim Duncan game. They don't get along for whatever reason. And that type of stuff happened all the time. That ref that came out publicly and started saying stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff he said made sense. Like, hey, you see a guy at the bar the night before getting annihilated and he has a game the next day, you'll know, like, maybe I should bet against that team, or whatnot. So there was a lot of, and then he also talked about how, certain refs were put on certain games because they thought it would indirectly influence the outcome and maybe lead to a game 7 if it was a game 6 or whatnot. So that type of stuff happens. Chauncey Billups, he just got caught. He was a part of that giant scandal, and I think we haven't even scratched the surface on how deep and dark all that is. I think we both have talked to Brian Toohey, who wrote the book The Fix Is In, and this stuff has been going on for a long time. And if you think soccer just happens to be the only in boxing, so there's like certain sports that everybody like publicly accepts is super corrupt, and then for some reason the big American sports have done such a great job with their PR and hiding it all. And now you have sports betting as some of the biggest sponsors of the game. And I'm like, wait, so you're suspending guys for betting, but during the commercials you got, hey, I want everybody to bet. You're like helping the industry grow while it's saying that, like, hey, we don't want it in our game. Like, it's crazy.
They're hypocrites. It's money driven. I mean, now when you can have prop bets on players' specific statistics for the night of some obscure game, some basketball game in the middle of January in Milwaukee, nobody gives a fuck about. All of a sudden, everybody's betting on whether or not, some shooting guard's going to have go off for a ton of hit the under on rebounds or something. All the money flows in. Very suspicious. Guys, there's going to be a lot of that, I think. I think there's going to be, we're seeing it right now with the NBA, and as you said, I think that you keep an eye on that because it's not just limited to the NBA, of course. This is something that's going to be pervasive throughout every sport, anywhere where there's money. I don't know, did you see the video of Kevin Durant standing on the foul line? He's not taking a free throw, but some other dude is, and he's making eye contact with that dude in the stand, white guy, young guy with a baseball hat, and the guy with the baseball hat is pointing at him, and he's nodding, and Kevin Durant shaking his head no, and the other guy's nodding yes. Are you familiar with that video? Have you seen that footage? Because that, to me, I don't know what they were talking about, but it was really, really weird, and I think that once they really get to the bottom of this, it's going to be throughout everything.
Yeah, I'm curious. I haven't seen that. I'll have to look that up. I mean, there's some obvious ones. I mean, Luka going to L.A.
That's weird.
Like you have Luka going to L.A. Sports Center. I had Sports Center on in the background. I had some friends over. Sports Center on in the background when it broke. The Sports Center hosts announced it confused. They're like, we don't know if this is correct, but we're getting word that Luka was traded to the Lakers for a very injury-prone Anthony Davis, and it's like, wait, this guy was like, if they won in the finals against the Celtics that year, he would have been Finals MVP. He brought that team to the finals. The best player on the team. They love him in Dallas, and they didn't talk to any other team in the league, and no other team did negotiate one of the best players in the league, and then they do a smear campaign where they talk about his weight and all these things. Like, yeah, of course that's an issue, but all you're trying to do is justify what seems to be a absurd trade. And it was to help the L.A. Lakers owners and franchise. And then magically, the I'm sorry to the Dallas fans, the way the NBA tries to make right. It's almost like when a ref makes a bad call and it's a makeup call. Like the makeup call was, hey, how about we, against all other odds, we give you Cooper flag.
Right.
It's like, really? Like, you think that was accidental, that they just traded a franchise player and with very little odds to get the first overall pick in a year that you had an amazing first overall pick, you get Cooper flag? Like, that's absurd. It's like the Patrick Ewing thing back in the day. Like, it's absurd. It's like it's like telling a wrestling fan that it's like it's rehearsed. It's like as a kid, or telling a kid that Santa's not real. Like, it breaks their heart that something that they love so much they think isn't as real as, you know, as they've been told. But the truth is, like, this stuff happens, and it's like that one was just like so right in your face. It's like nobody can believe that. I mean, Luka was stunned. Jason Kidd, the coaches, the coach of Dallas Mavericks, they had no talks with him. Like, what? And some people have done some deep dives into this about the owners and like wanting to move a team to Vegas, and the Dallas team to Vegas, and L.A.
You know who owns
needing a
them,
franchise
right?
Player. Yeah, Dallas. Isn't it some big casino family, right?
It's Miriam Adelson.
That's right.
Yeah.
Conveniently. Yeah. Jesus.
I mean, that's
This
franchise
podcast-
malpractice. to send Luka to LA. And listen, LA always gets him, right? They get Kobe. They swung that deal with Charlotte, that crazy ass deal to trade Vlade Divac to Charlotte to get Kobe. Nobody remembers that. He never suited up for Charlotte. They get Shaq. They get LeBron. They get Luka. Come on now.
Dude, at one point, I don't know if you remember, they actually lost to that Detroit team, which shows you like a
2004.
team is better than a bunch of stars.
That was
They
that was
had
the team.
Gary Payton. Yeah, Gary Payton, Karl Malone, Shaq, and Kobe, and I think Derek Fisher. Well, yeah, he was there. He was the point guard. I mean, that team on paper is. I mean, all those guys are Hall of Famers. And then a Detroit team where everybody knew their role. Ben Wallace couldn't take a fucking shot of his life.
Ben Wallace would knock your fucking head off.
Yeah, which he showed on video. He was willing to do. That was crazy. Yeah, it's crazy when you look at that team. You know, they kind of cruised through during the regular season. Everybody thought they were just going to get that Karl Malone ring and the Gary Payton ring that they deserved and whatever. And Detroit just kind of proved, like, dude, we got everybody knows their role, everybody buys in. Tayshaun Prince, lengthy. He was a great
Tayshaun Prince was
player.
there. That was one of the
Chauncey
dudes
Billups.
who was at IMG when I was there. I meant to say him.
Yeah, dude. Just talking about this brings back some memories of some great basketball eras that were fun to watch. Yeah. It's wild, man. I mean, it's funny. Like, my love with basketball is why I wanted to play basketball. My love with music is why I wanted to play music. My love for podcasts is why I wanted to podcast. Everything I love, I just also want to do. I'm sure that's probably similar to you.
Yeah. Here's a kind of a creepy thing. I was talking to Tony Merkel. It was the first week of February in 2020. And we were just on the phone talking about macroaggressions. We were going to launch it, in a couple of weeks, and so we were just having a conversation about that. And sort of midway through, he goes, "Oh my God, Kobe Bryant just died," and I was like, "Holy shit!" You remember that how that was like, frankly, like that was when all the bullshit began. If I'm being honest, like I think it was like first week of February 4th, maybe, 2020. And I was on the phone, just coincidentally. I just remember where I was when that happened because I was talking to Tony about macroaggressions that hadn't started yet. We were just getting it going. And I was like, whoa. It's like you didn't know what you didn't know. Then you get COVID 3 weeks later too.
Dude, it was crazy, the timing of it all. I mean, this is probably a great way of ending it kind of where we started, just appreciation for life. It's I remember when Diego Jota died, the Liverpool player, the Portuguese player, and I follow all the Portuguese players really closely. He played at Porto in Portugal, went to Wolves, and then made a name for himself at Liverpool. Young kid. Just won the Nations League with Portugal against Spain in the finals. Had an amazing Liverpool Premier League where they ended up winning it all the last year. And he had some, because of surgery, it was some type of medical thing. It was either because he just had surgery or was having surgery or some health issue where they recommended him to drive from Spain to Portugal instead of fly. And he gets in this car accident and dies, him and his brother. And, young kid in the 20s, beloved by everybody. And I remember being shocked, similar to like the Kobe thing, where it just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. And I'm just like, fuck, dude. Like, this dude just got married. He just won the Nations League. He's a young dad on one of the best clubs in the world, Liverpool. He's potential playing. He gets to play in the World Cup coming up for Portugal, who's a favorite. Like, literally everything was going great in his life, and just like that, they were gone. I remember my kid, and it's funny thinking about trauma and how it affects you. I remember my son, just like when we found out together, we're looking at each other, and I felt like he was an adult dealing with it like an adult. Like he understood how crazy it was, and he was sad for a couple days and didn't want to turn off the TV and wanted, and I'm just like, wow, man, like he gets it. He understands he knows what this means. He's like, he's not like, he's gone. He's like, his life's over. He had like all those beautiful things that are going on were taken away from everybody and his family and his teammates, and now everybody's grieving. And it was but again, like, the only good thing that comes out of all these things is that because I think we do need these reminders, because we get caught up in being busy, right, and not taking a day off and not enjoying life and company and whatever, and the holidays or whatever. I think the only good thing that comes out of all these things is it reminds you tomorrow's not promised. Don't take today for granted. Don't take tomorrow for granted. Don't take anything for granted, because just like that, it can be over and gone. And, that's why and it's a flaw of mine. That's why I never, think too far in advance, because I'm always like, well, I might not make it 10 years, 20 years. Like, what am I going to do when I retire? I'm like, I might not even make it to retirement. Like, what's retirement? I don't know. I'm like, it's like, it's to a flaw, but I'm like, I definitely am enjoying the now more than those people who are overthinking that. So it's it's crazy.
All right. Let's wrap it up then, I suppose. It's a good place to leave it. Yeah, it's important to take care of yourself, not take everything too seriously. We're here for a very short period of time. Some people get to experience all those amazing things in a very tight window, and other people live long, long lives doing absolutely nothing. So I suppose it's what you make of it. And we'll see what 2026 is like, but I'm cautiously optimistic, I suppose. I think ultimately it's what you make of it with your immediate family, the people closest to you. I think a lot of the nonsense that we hear, or the stuff that we're fearful that might happen, even if it does happen, I don't know that it'll impact us, really, if we're being honest about it. But the things that will impact you are the things that you can control, the things within your reach with your family and friends, and staying close to them, and not making sure they're not, if it gets weird, making sure it doesn't get too weird for your friends and they're not feeling isolated like during the COVID era where things were rough. So I'm looking forward to more Union of the Unwanted shows. I know that much, because that's been, talk about a really fun curveball. To have that outlet over the last couple of years has been I think very beneficial for a lot of people. So thanks for always setting that up. And yes, you are the party planner. It is the Portuguese in you. You do like to invite everybody, the guest list, and pour out the proverbial wine for everybody. So I appreciate it, man. It's good to partner up with you on podcasts. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's fun, man. I mean, it's I've had so many great conversations with people, throughout this podcast journey, and especially you, like you, I feel like I even though you're a podcast, partner and friend, I definitely consider. I mean, anytime I refer to you, it's always like, oh, my friend Charlie. I'm like, yeah. I've never even met this guy in person, but I feel like you're one of my best friends, and it's like it's awesome. I mean, like if I need something, I can text you. If I will, if I'm bored, I can text you. If I have an idea, I can text you. And
if you have music, you can text me. And you have been texting me, and I would encourage people to go check out your music, by the way, which, since we've been talking about that, that's just nice to have that as an additional outlet. Podcasts are one thing, and music is another thing, and it's nice to see you making cool music and sending it my way. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think we both like to create. We have imaginations. We love bringing things that start in our head to life, and music is no different. And this conversation reminds me of one of the lines, the lyrics, that song "Digital Disease" I sent you, because one of the lines is at the end, "Do we restart or die?" And that's always a thought I have in my head. And it's like, hey, what happens at the end of this journey? And we don't know. But maybe we do restart. Who knows? Or or do we get recycled? Who knows? But it's these deep conversations and these deep, just explorations into what's reality and whatnot. It's fun, and I'm glad there's people like you out there that people can listen to that kind of help spark these conversations and get people to kind of zoom out and not just live in the material world for too long, but they hear about your ayahuasca trips, and you're like, fuck, maybe he's tuning into something. Maybe he's maybe there's something there, and so yeah, I think we're all just figuring it out as we go, and on this journey, I'm glad that we're friends and we get to go on it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's good to it's definitely good to have you along for this crazy ass experience. Well, let's say on my end, I know this is sort of a swap cast, so you'll say what you need to say on your end. On my end, I will say that I hope people will go to Acapulco in Puerto Vallarta in February, 15th through the 20th. I guess 15th is the opening night. It's in Puerto Vallarta. We outgrew Acapulco, so it's in a banger of a lineup too. Go to narcapulco.com and you can find out the lineup. I'll be the MC again this year. Oh, good Lord. I'm going to be wrangling anarchist cats, but it'll be fun because, I should just read the lineup since I think I've got it here. Jeff Berwick, Curtis Stone, Gareth Ike, David Ike, Max Egan, Dr. Andrew Kaufman, Christian Yordanov, Tim James, Patrick Henningsen, Greg Reese, Steve Falconer, Vit Jedlenka, the president of Lieberland, which is pretty cool. Dan Dix, Mark Devlin, musical guest, Aya May. She's the Australian chick who's having some success. She'll be there. And a couple other people who I don't think I'm at liberty to announce, but pretty big names that will be there. So I hope people will come and check it out and listen. It's worse places to be than Mexico in February. You come after the Super Bowl, right? Watch the Super Bowl. Then the next week, come on out. See you there.
MIA is a huge artist. I mean, I don't know if you remember that song. All I want to do is a chicken, a bing boom, and take your money. That's her song. That was a huge hit.
This not MIA. This is IMA. IYAH. IMA. She's a little. She's a she's in Australia. She's a young, like, blonde Australian, cute Australian girl who's got like songs on. She's got a song that mentions the Epstein files, which I thought was pretty fucking awesome. And she's gonna.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. She's been kind of like on
Yeah,
TikTok and X and everything. Real cute,
last year,
blonde,
yeah.
Australian.
What the hell was that song last year? It came out late last year. She was a nurse, right? She was a nurse or
Something like
something
that.
like
Yeah.
that. She came from the medical world, and then yeah, she had that song that went viral at the end of last year. It was like
Yeah.
I remember because it was like New Year's Eve, and I remember playing it for my wife. I'm like, dude, I can't stop playing the song. It's so catchy, and it was a wicked good. And she just came out with a new one called Evil Citizen, something Citizen that's really good. But the one that came out last year was like it was catchy. She had great lyrics, hit on really good important topics, and it went viral. And then she started getting interviewed on a bunch of stuff. I actually tried reaching out to her to try getting her on because from a fellow conspiracy theorist musician, I figured she'd be fun to have on. But yeah, look her up. That song is. I wish I had the song from me, but just look her up. I'm sure it'll come up because.
Yeah, I looked her up just because I was like, I mean, I'm going to be introducing her to the stage. I should be familiar with her stuff. You know what I mean? So I went and like looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, I know who she is. I mean, I kind of recognized. I didn't know the name, and I didn't really know. I did. There's a bunch of songs, so I had to listen to a bunch of them. So I was like, oh yeah, she'll be a good fit. What's that?
I just found it. Carmageddon. That was a song.
Carmageddon. Yeah,
that was an awesome song. If you guys are listening, definitely check out that song. Super catchy. I mean, you could play it in the background. Your kids will sing to it and dance to it because it's so catchy. They won't even know it's about how the world's being run by elites. It's a really good song.
She's doing opening night, so and I think Mark Devlin's DJing. He comes in from the UK. He's great, and he's got Musical Truths Volume 1, 2, and 3, and then he's got a new fiction book series that he's working on as well. So good to see Mark there.
But
yeah, so it's a good. It's
also got some great interviews.
For sure. Yeah. I know who she is, and it's not her, but I know who you're talking about, and she would be a good fit as well. It just happens to not be her, but maybe one day we'll see.
Well, the other girl is a bit more relevant because she got kicked off her like record label. She for going down this path of like being outspoken and had a song that literally went viral late last year into early this year and really just came out of nowhere, made a name for herself, and she seems to be doing really well, and she seems super smart, well spoken, like you said, cute, talented. I mean, she's kind of have the whole package. I mean, I see bright things in her future. So that's exciting. That's awesome to get her on.
Yeah. So and our friend Christian Yordanev too will be speaking there. So I'm excited for him. So
awesome. Yeah, and then I guess on my end, the rippleeffectpodcast.com. You can find Ripple Effect Podcast anywhere you can get podcasts. And then Theory 6 is also available anywhere you stream music. And then, I mean, take a listen, check it out. I do use, just put it out there, I do use some artificial intelligence to play the songs that I write, but, to help speed up the process of starting a song from in my imagination to putting it into Spotify where you can listen to it. It's a long journey, and it's not that it's much shorter with AI, but it definitely helps quite a bit. Taking those ideas and helping generate them and bring them to life. And then of course the Unwanted.com. We live stream, at least Charlie and I try to, every other Monday. And as long as YouTube keeps letting us, we'll keep doing it there. And then you can find the audio on all the podcast platforms.
That's it. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you again soon.